Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Oh, pretty good.
This is Jim. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, good.
Who are we missing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got Ken down.
This is Ken. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Ken.
How about Tim Brewer?
Yep, can hear you too.
Can you see the moon over my shoulder?
Sure can. Is that a new moon?
No, I think that's a light.
Ah.
Matter of fact, I'm gonna turn the lights out. Okay, night vision. Can't see what I'm doing.
Investigation. I don't know who that is. I see everybody but Jerry so far. Jerry, are you on here? There's Jerry. Jerry, can you hear us? I believe he's trying, but he is on there. Jim, if you go ahead and start us with a prayer.
I will. Our Father God in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity again. We thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to come to discuss the county business. And as always, we ask for your guidance and your wisdom to make the right decisions for all the people in this community. We thank you for all the blessings you give us each and every day. We thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for the forgiveness of our sins. And it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, this will be the Monday, November 16th meeting of Spencer County Fiscal Court. We are ready to get started, and if the clerk will please call the roll.
For Brewer,
Present.
for Mike Mitty,
Present.
for Beaverson,
Present.
Judge Riley,
Here.
Squire Travis,
Here.
Squire Jerry Moody,
Present.
We have a quorum. We're ready to do business. First item of business will be approval of the minutes of the prior court meetings. We have two. One of them got kind of lost in the shuffle of paperwork, and I believe that Molly has emailed that out to everyone. But let's take the November 2nd meeting. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes, the November 2nd meeting of fiscal court.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
moved.
motion we approve the meetings for November 2nd meeting.
We've got a motion. That's Squire Travis. Who seconded that?
Squire Brewer, second.
Okay, there is a correction that I'd like to note. And some of you all may have gotten this correction already, but I do want to make sure that it is noted in the minutes. It would be on page 5, I believe, of the packet. Item number 8 under personnel policy, voting leave. And I believe the minutes say none opposed. That is incorrect. The minutes should say that Esquire Beaverson, Mike Moody, and Jerry Moody, and Judge Riley voted yes. Esquire Brewer voted no. Motion passed. Anyone have any other corrections?
No, you took my thunder.
Okay, if there's no other corrections, clerk, call the roll, please.
Squire Mike Moody,
Yes.
Squire Beaverson.
Yes.
Riley,
Yes.
Squire Travis,
Yes.
Squire Jerry Moody,
Yes.
Squire Brewer.
Yes.
Motion passes, and the next item would be the minutes to the special meeting on November 6th. And let me see if I can do something here. I'm not sure I'll be able to pull this off, but we will try. Can everyone see the minutes on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this would be for the special meeting that was called November 6th. It's a very short, sweet meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Squire Brewer will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Travis, seconds.
Any corrections? If none, call the roll, please.
Squire Beaverson,
Yes.
Judge Riley,
Yes.
Squire Travis,
Yes.
Squire Jerry Moody,
Sustain, I wasn't there.
Squire Brewer,
Yes.
Squire Mike Moody,
Abstain due to absence.
Motion passes. Okay, next up is communications from County Judge Executive. A few things that I'd like to note. First thing is that all county offices will be closed for the Thanksgiving holiday next Thursday and Friday, November 26th and November 27th. The waste tire event was again successful. They collected 4 semi-truckloads of tires in 2.5 days. Next item is the census numbers will be The certification of those census numbers will be coming in December. I do expect Spencer County to be over 20,000 in population. Depending on the growth in each district, since the 2010 census, we may need to redistrict the magistrate districts before the 2022 election. Next item is that Chris Lemp will not be available for a COVID update. However, there has been an obvious spike in the number of reported positive cases in Spencer County and the surrounding counties. Everyone must remain vigilant and use extra caution to avoid contracting this virus. Next item is we will no longer be picking up recyclables at the courthouse. It's become a futile effort to keep garbage and recycled material separate. The time and effort to pick up at the courthouse and sort the garbage from recyclable material is not worth it. Notice was sent today to PVA and the clerk's office. All garbage and recyclable material will be put in the trash can or in the dumpster behind the courthouse. With that, I'm going to move on to communications from citizens. Do we have anyone that would like to address the courts?
Judge, before we go on, can you get the minutes off of the screen?
Oh, thank you. I sure can. Somehow I can do that. How's that?
Okay.
Outstanding.
Okay, and I keep getting somebody that tries to sign on and they keep trying to sign on. So I'll try to keep up with that as we move along. So communications from citizens. Chase, have you got anything?
I would like to thank the county clerk and the Board of Elections for a well-run election in Spencer County. I think voter turnout was very appropriate, and I think the election was run with great integrity and honesty.
Excellent. Anyone else? Hearing none, we're going to move on to communications reports from members, other offices and committees. The first one up is zoning. We have none. That will come up at our next meeting. Next up, we've got Olivia Rancine from KIPTA, and I'm going to recognize her and give her the floor for an update, and you are muted.
I have unmuted myself.
Excellent job.
Awesome. Let me just throw this toy away from my dog so he doesn't interrupt. The joys of working at home, right? So I was just going to give a presentation. Can you allow me to, let's see, could you enable me to share my screen, Judge Riley?
I can try to do that.
So there should be an option at the bottom of your screen. Let me pull up the instructions just in case, but.
I'll try that.
Okay, let me try that. All right, it's working. Thank you. Awesome. All right, I will get started then. Well, hello everyone, and hope everyone is having a good Monday. I am again trying to move a toy away from my dog, who keeps interrupting me. So, hi, I'm Olivia, and I'm with the Kentuckiana Regional Planning and Development Agency, also called KIPTA, and we are going to talk about the Hazard Mitigation Plan update today. So, just for those of you that aren't familiar with KIPTA, we are a lot of different funds in the region. So we have a a transportation department, that is our metropolitan planning organization. We are also an area development district, and that is where my division serves, the Community and Economic Development Division. We also have a Geographic Information Services department that handles a lot of the mapping for our region and for many of our communities. And we have a social services branch, which deals with a lot of Medicaid and Medicare issues in the community, and programs for older adults and those with disabilities. All right. So my division, the Community and Economic Development Division, we lead hazard mitigation planning. And so what is a hazard mitigation plan? So hazard mitigation plans are required for communities under the Stafford Act of 2001. Essentially what hazard mitigations plans do, one second. All right, I've successfully moved the toilet. Essentially what hazard mitigation plans do are they assess the likelihood of a natural disaster or another hazard occurring and formulate how each of our communities can better prepare for that natural disaster. We do the hazard mitigation plan at the regional level, which means we include Bullitt, Henry, Oldham, Shelby, Spencer, and Trimble counties. We do this at the regional level because our counties typically face the same hazards and the same disasters. It's also easier to do a mix and simplifies the process for our counties. So essentially the big outcome from hazard mitigation plans is it helps formulate different resiliency projects and disaster mitigation projects that will be eligible for FEMA funding in our communities. And federal law requires us to update the plan every 5 years. And our last plan was from 2016, so now we're doing the 2021 update. So what are the major components of our hazard mitigation plans? We have a risk assessment, which basically describes hazards, identifies community assets, analyzes risk, and summarizes vulnerability. And so basically what that does is it identifies different disasters in our region, how vulnerable areas are to them, and then it proposes a mitigation strategy for how we can how we can combat these hazards, and it ranks those actions. And a large component of the H&P is community, I apologize, is community outreach, interviews, and meetings. So why do communities such as Spencer County and the Spencer County Fiscal Court need to participate? Because it makes our communities number one, eligible for FEMA grants. So counties and communities must participate and pass a resolution to adopt the hazard mitigation in order to be eligible for FEMA funding after a disaster. So that's really essential. So if our communities want those FEMA grants, they have to have an updated plan on file. Also, why they should and they need to participate is because this helps break the cycle. We have a constant cycle in this country of incurring a natural disaster, rebuilding, and then, oh no, another natural disaster strikes, and then we rebuild again. What mitigation does is it tries to intervene and help reduce the damage associated with disasters in the first place. And for every dollar invested in mitigation, typically an average of $6 is saved. And so the hazard mitigation plan basically comes up with a series of ideas, projects, and goals to make this happen. And that's why it's really important to our communities. Also, from this mitigation plan, we get precise actions and projects. So FEMA in the state of Kentucky, Kentucky Emergency Management, they are looking for specific actions and projects, and our communities help determine this. And when when there is a disaster that strikes our communities, it's really great to have a list of projects with ideas and kind of a funding ideas to fleshed out for when funds become available. And this is really compelling for FEMA to see that these mitigation projects are in the plan, and that definitely strengthens the grant application for FEMA. Also, why our communities need to participate is it's required. So this planning document, which our last one was 600 pages, this won't be 600 pages. We're trying to make it more concise, and we're also trying to create a web-based form, but we'll go into that later. Basically, how our communities pay for this project is through in-kind donations of their time. So it's by participating. Obviously, participation is a little bit more difficult these days because of COVID. So we're trying to find some creative ways to work around this. And so one thing that's important to note is FEMA only gives credit for those city, county employees, and even members of the public that don't receive part of their salary from federal funds. So for example, even though a large part of the mitigation plan is meeting with our emergency managers, their time can't count towards that in-kind donation because their position is largely federally funded. So our in-kind requirement for our communities is approximately 92 hours per county, or about 550 hours for the region. And this can be achieved, and I have several spreadsheets full of information on how we're working on this. But this can be achieved through many ways. One is our regional hazard mitigation planning council meetings, which Judge Riley attended last week virtually. And so we have our county send at least 2 representatives to these meetings, and this is for regional collaboration on hazard mitigation. Also, I'll be conducting one-on-one meetings over Zoom, over the phone, or social distance in person with community planners, engineers, public works, and local officials for any of their concerns, and those can count towards the in-kind donation. Also, this meeting that we're having tonight in this presentation counts towards that in-kind requirement as well. And so I'll have y'all, we'll go over this at the end of the presentation, but I'll have y'all sign a quick form virtually so that can count as part of Spencer County's participation in in-kind donation. I'll also be attending a lot of the LEPC meetings and presenting at them about upcoming H&P progress. We've also developed what I think is a really neat website for our local officials and local government employees to review materials. And you can essentially, when you review materials, you can track this time using this online time tracking form that we have created so that we can count that time towards your community as well. And then also we have surveys available just to kind of get the perception of disasters in your region and provide feedback and ideas, and those surveys can count for time. So how can our communities and communities like Spencer County Fiscal Court help with the hazard mitigation plan? So a large part of this is for our communities to help us identify local vulnerabilities and opportunities. So one thing that we don't capture with state data is smaller problems. So for instance, y'all are the best people to know if there are problem areas in your community, such as a road that always floods. That might not be in a flood zone. It might not be picked up with state data. So we need that feedback so we can note this in the mitigation plan and also help tie it back to potential project ideas. Also reviewing hazard mitigation materials and answering surveys. So we're going to send out risk assessments, vulnerability assessments for y'all to review on our website. And that is super critical to look at them and to gain a better understanding of what's going on in your community and how we can assist you. Also suggesting mitigation actions, which is kind of the final part of the mitigation plan, and then ranking these. We know what matters to Spencer County the most and what should be prioritized. So we've been talking, or I've been talking a lot about different disasters that our communities face, and what are those? So a couple example of those, the ones that are included in our plan include dam failure, drought, earthquake, extreme cold, extreme heat, hail, wildfire, flood, sinkhole, landslide, severe storm, severe winter storm, and tornado. Obviously, some of these are a bigger threat every year than others. For example, floods, as we know in the great state of Kentucky, you can always count happening every year. And something a little bit less common would be a sinkhole or an earthquake. However, those are all dangers that our community could experience and has experienced. And so how does a hazard mitigation plan address these hazards and these disasters? So it does this through the risk assessment, which consists of a hazard ID, a vulnerability assessment, and a capability assessment. So the hazard ID basically identifies hazards in the planning area, it profiles them, and then it goes through different components of the disasters and when they've occurred and where they've occurred, using different data sources from the state, from existing plans, from GIS analysis, from insurance data, and from federal and state databases. Sorry if you hear my dog whining in the background. He is quiet all day until now. You can always expect that to happen. And then the second part of the risk assessment is the vulnerability assessment. The vulnerability assessment is both qualitative and quantitative. So for example, if we're looking at a risk like extreme heat, which we have experienced in Kentucky many a times and continue to experience intensely during the summers, the greatest vulnerability is to our seniors and to those who can't afford air condition or are not housed. However, the biggest risk is not to buildings or infrastructure because it typically doesn't damage property. However, if you look at a disaster like flooding, obviously flooding is the majority of hazard costs in our community and causes a lot of losses to properties and infrastructure and critical infrastructure. So those vulnerability assessments would look different based on how the disaster impacts the community. So that's just one example. And then there's a capability assessment, which basically says what resources are already in place to implement mitigation projects and where are there gaps in this capability, and what are the capability categories. So essentially the risk assessment again is the hazard ID, the vulnerability assessment, and the capability assessment. And the risk assessment helps determine those mitigation goals and projects, which is really the final product and the most important product of the hazard mitigation plan. So how do I learn more about the hazards my community faces? And this is again a way for us to get an in-kind donation is by going to our website that we've created. And this is available on the agenda, and I'll also be sending it to Judge Riley as well. But kiptahazardmitigation.org is a portal that we've created to help us accommodate this process during COVID. And so there's one second, technology. There is a YouTube video right here for learning how to use the portal, but I'll just give a brief overview. So we have an about section, and essentially what this section does is it says, what's the hazard mitigation plan, who's included, who leads it. You can go here, see what is a hazard mitigation plan, press down, press back to collapse, what's the purpose? And so this can teach you a little bit about the hazard mitigation planning process. And then we have an explore hazards section, which basically describes every disaster and hazard that our region faces. And so, for example, if I were to go to flooding, here we have a map of floodplains in the KIPTA region, including right there in Spencer County. And then below here, we have more information about how flooding impacts our communities. So you can press again, see more information about types of flooding and a vulnerability assessment. And down here, we do an assessment. It's an online interactive map of how floodplains intersect with housing in the KIPTA region. And so you can see how many housing units are in 100 or 100 or 500 year floodplains based on their location in the region. So that's just one example. We can also look at, for example, dam failure. So we have an interactive map here. You can simply hover over each of these dots and see what name of dam, where is it located? You can see right over here, here's Spencer County's dams, and what's its hazard class, which means, how hazardous and how dangerous is it within the community. So that's pretty cool. You can zoom in and zoom out of the map. And then down here, we have more information about dams in our region and types of dam failure. So those are just two examples of the hazards. We've created this for each of the disasters in our region, and we'll be adding on to them and personalizing them for each county as we collect more information as this process continues. So this website will be continuously updated. And then how to participate, and this is how we can get our in-kind contribution during this COVID time. We have meetings which are listed here. Obviously, most of those are online, so that'll be the most up-to-date page about meetings. And then we also have something called our feedback map, which is an app that KIPTA developed that we're actually really excited about. Again, there's a YouTube video here and instructions to explain how to use it, but I'll go over it really quickly. It's pretty simple to use. So essentially, this is built through ArcGIS and GIS services that helps our communities identify where problem areas or potential projects are. So for example, as you can see on this screen, I go to submit a report, say that I know that I have some debris issues, and I have debris issues example. We'll say something about debris issues. Okay, well, I can go on the map. I can either search an address, or I can find the area on the map and go out to where that area might be. Say it's over here. And then I simply click to add point, press report it. And then you'll see it's right there on the map with that information. And so then that information comes back to me. And that helps inform our mitigation plan and what projects should be proposed and our mitigation goals and actions. So that's a really cool tool that we've developed for COVID. Also here, we have an initial survey that we'd like for you all to take. It's super short. It just asks about your perception of disasters and the level of disaster preparation in your community. So that's really simple. And then going back to the website here, we have a time tracking form. So say if you spend any time on the website looking over different disasters or going on our feedback form, please track it here. It's really simple. You just put your information in and then say what time you started reviewing, what time you finished reviewing. And if say you reviewed multiple times, you can put in second review or third review as well, and then press submit. That helps us substantially as it's, it's really a struggle to get public participation during COVID, and your community is required to have 92 hours of public participation by next fall. So this is an easy way that you can do this from your home. And again, this is all at our hazard mitigation website, kiptahazardmitigation.org. And so we're about done with the presentation. This process will be completed by early fall of 2021. That's also kind of been an issue for us in the sense that we actually applied for this funding almost 2 years ago to do this for our communities. And FEMA has been incredibly slow. This was before the pandemic. And we were hoping to actually get started on this process last fall to have it completed 2 years later. So now it's even more rushed, which is why it's so essential that we get everyone's participation so that we can submit this by fall of 2021 so that your community is eligible for FEMA grants, because that's really important. And again, under federal law, you have to have an updated plan for your county so that you're eligible for them. Just some tasks moving forward. I highly recommend that you review the hazard mitigation portal website and fill out the time tracker form to say that you did it and how much time you spent on it, so we can count that time. Take our initial survey on the portal. If you know of any local hazards issues or have project ideas, fill out our hazard mitigation feedback form that I just showed you. This is more for Judge Riley and relevant officials, but we are going to be using a lot of building data to figure out how much property damage and the monetary value of property damage from disasters. So we'll be needing information from the PVA office. And then if you know anyone else who would like to be included or contacted in this process, please feel free to contact me. If you would like to have a one-on-one conversation with me over the phone or over Zoom, that's great too. Again, that counts towards your time and would be super helpful during this process. We are having our next regional meeting tentatively on March 10th. That will likely be online. So we encourage as many of you to attend as you can, because that counts towards your time as well. But I'll keep Judge Riley updated about that. And then, any questions? I do actually, before I ask for questions, I do want to ask for one thing, which is because you listened to this presentation, we'd like you to just fill out this really quick form. And if everyone could just type in their name and email in the chat box, I'll email you the form. I'll also post it in the chat box right now. So just so we can capture the time that y'all spent listening to me today. So we would really appreciate that. Do we have any? I'll put it in the chat box. That's just a simple form. You just say that you listened to my presentation and that's it. All right. Any questions?
Perfect. I think that was right at 15 minutes, Olivia. That was excellent. I knew it would be a rather lengthy presentation, but it's really important, in order for us to get the funding, should we, and we have taken advantage of this many times, of being able to get FEMA funding for some of the disasters and damages that we've had. One good example would be the Spears Drive. That was a mitigation project, the Spears Drive drainage project. Mike, one of the things, and you may be interested in this, I know Todd has tried several times to get Brashears Creek Road, to raise the level of Brashears Creek Road right here in town, because it floods. When the creek is up, it's going to flood Brashears Creek Road. So we've applied, we just have not been successful in getting that approved. So, but many examples of how important this is, and not only from a planning and preparation standpoint, but also funding when disasters do fall upon us. So anybody have any questions? I'm not hearing any. Olivia, I will be glad to send your email address and phone number out to all. I'm not sure you want to publish that publicly, because I think this may be on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So I'll make sure that gets to them in case they have any questions or would like to, get more information on this. It's another example of how important KIPTA, the area development districts as a whole, but in our case, KIPTA, is to Spencer County and all the counties in the KIPTA area. So
I appreciate you saying that. Again, if I've actually put the form in the chat box, so if you would fill that out, takes 2 seconds, just your name, your email. I would so appreciate it. I'll also send that link to you, Judge Riley, and you can distribute it there to the magistrates as well.
Okay, and also the name of your division is Community and Economic Development?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and I always brag on your division because I think it's the smallest in the number of people in the division, but the mightiest. You all do tremendous work out of, what is there, 4 of you?
There are 4 of us, yes.
Yeah. It's incredible the amount of work you all do, so I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. We always like working with Spencer County.
All right, well, take care of that pup of yours.
Is
And
that your new dog?
yes, it is. We're gonna move on, and next up is the Safety Committee report, Esquire Brewer. You're muted.
You broke up. I don't know what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry. Next up is the Safety Committee report, Esquire Brewer.
Okay. There's been no report of any safety issues to the safety committee since our last meeting.
All right. Solid Waste Committee report.
All right, this is Jim. We had bids on our contract for solid waste and we rejected them. And it is, I'm going to let Tim make a motion to recommend that we do a 2-year extension with Rumpke.
And we will do that when we come up to old business.
I was going to say, we've got that under old business, Jim.
Okay.
All right. Anything else from solid waste? Already reported on the tire issue. If not, we're going to move on to the Veterans Committee report. I know Squire Brewer has something to say on that.
Yes, we had a Veterans Day ceremony last Wednesday. Had approximately 30 people in attendance. I want to thank Judge Riley and Lynn Hasselbrock for attending. It was a very moving ceremony. James Allen Tipton was a speaker, and I would like to see everybody come out next year to honor our veterans. There's over 1,200 veterans in this county. We only had 30 people there.
All right. Also, former magistrate Hobart Judd was the master of ceremonies, I believe.
That is correct. Yes.
All right. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the Equipment Committee report. Jerry, you're up and you're muted. There you go.
There's nothing to report. Everything will be under new business.
All right. With that, we're going to move on to the Telecommunications Committee.
Really, there's not a whole lot different other than I do have Jefferson Audiovisual. They're supposed to be coming out this week to also take a look at the planning and zoning meeting room for that audiovisual equipment that's needing to be replaced there. Other than that, I don't have anything new.
All right. Any other committees would like to report or offices? I can tell you that the sheriff has received one of the new Explorers and expects to have the others sometime before the end of the year. If there's nothing else, we're going to move on to the second reading of our budget amendment. And let me get to that. Well, bear with me. You all have it in your packets. Okay, this is the second reading of ordinance relating to the annual budget and amendment thereof. Ordinance number 3. And I will entertain a motion to approve the second reading.
Motion to approve second reading.
Okay, I'm gonna say that motion was Squire Beaverson
Second, Mike Moody.
and Squire Mike Moody, second. Is there any questions, comments? If not, please call the roll.
Judge Riley,
Yes.
Squire Travis,
Yes.
Squire Jerry Moody,
Yes.
Squire Brewer,
Yes.
Squire Mike Moody,
Yes.
Squire Beaverson,
Yes.
Motion passes and we will get that up advertised and that completes that process. While we're on the budget amendment, before we leave that, I just want to, I always forget to do this, but I want to make sure that the minutes reflect that Treasurer Doug Williams is in my office attending this meeting, has from the start. So you'll just let the minutes reflect that. Next item under old business is solid waste contract extension. Squire Travis.
Okay. We had bids for the solid waste and we rejected those. And I think Squire Brewer is going to make a motion that reflects what we discussed.
Yeah, the Solid Waste Committee recommends that we go back with Rumpke. And I make a motion that we extend our contract with Rumpke for an additional 2 years.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, Squire Brewer makes the motion. Squire Travis seconds it. And are there any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, call the roll, please.
Squire Travis,
Yes.
Squire Jerry Moody,
Yes.
Squire Brewer,
Yes.
Squire Mike Moody,
Yes.
Squire Beaverson,
Yes.
Judge Riley,
Yes. Motion passes and we will work together with Rumpke and get that done. Next up under new business would be the Multipurpose Community Action Agency has made a request for funds. They've requested that we release $10,000 of the 20 that we budgeted. I'll entertain a motion to do so.
I will make a motion. This is Jim. I'll make a motion that we release the total $20,000 to
I'm going
them.
to call that, Jim, I'm going to call that out of order because they've only requested $10,000 and that's what I'm looking for a motion for. We did this the last time and we don't, you know, we want to release 10,000. They'll request the other 10,000 when they need it. So I would appreciate the motion to release the 10,000. Would anybody like to make that motion?
This is Jerry. I'll make the motion to release the 10,000.
Okay, we've got a motion.
Second, Mike Moody.
And Mike seconds it. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, my only concern is we budgeted $20,000 for them. I don't see any reason why we can't just go ahead and release that $20,000 to them and let them have that money so they can use it for their discretion.
I can assure you, Squire Travis, that if they needed the $20,000 now, they would have requested the 20,000. They've only requested 10, and this is typical of what they do is that they request a portion, then later on in the fiscal year, they request another portion of it. So,
Okay, that's fine.
yeah. So if they were requesting 20, I would not have a problem with it, but they've only requested 10, and I think that that's what we need to do. So we've got a motion and a second. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Squire Beaverson. Oh, okay.
No.
Go ahead then and call the roll.
Squire Jerry Moody,
Yes.
Squire Brewer,
Yes.
Squire Mike Moody,
Yes.
Squire Beaverson,
Yes.
Judge Riley,
Yes.
Squire Travis,
Yes.
Motion passes, and we'll move on to the Ethics Commission reappointment. Would ask approval to reappoint Linda Bennett. She was appointed to finish out an unexpired term. That term now is expiring and would like to reappoint her. I have talked to her, and she is willing to serve a full term. And I know she's been working well with the other two Ethics Commission members. So I'd like to have a motion to approve the reappointment of Linda Bennett to the Ethics Commission.
So moved.
Squire Brewer makes the motion. We got a second.
Or Travis, second.
Squire Travis. Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, call the roll, please.
Squire Brewer,
Yes.
Squire Mike Moody,
Yes.
Squire Beaverson,
yes,
Judge Riley,
Yes.
Squire Travis,
Yes.
Squire Jerry Moody.
yes,
Motion passes. And we'll move on. The next item, I wanted to put this out to fiscal court for them to make a decision on it. My recommendation was no, but there's been a request for the clerk to join the International Association of Government Officials. And
Can I comment on that,
you
please?
certainly can.
I'm already a member. This is a renewal.
Right.
motion to approve,
Got a motion, Squire Beaverson.
Second, Travis.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any comments, questions, or concerns?
Could I ask what this association does, just so we'll know?
Yes, it's an association that several clerks belong to. They have training programs on elections and on recordings and things that are relevant to the job that I do. There's money in my training budget. I don't know why it's on the agenda. It doesn't go over the $1,000 threshold that everyone else is held to. But it's a learning experience and a learning opportunities for things that I do in my job. Just like the Magistrate Association, the Judges Association.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
Squire Mike Moody,
Yes.
Squire Beaverson,
yes,
Judge Riley,
Yes.
Squire Travis,
Yes.
Squire Jerry Moody,
yes,
Squire Brewer.
Yes. Motion passes, and we'll move on to resolution and agreement for the discretionary funding for paving projects. And essentially what we need to do, all we really need to do is approve the resolution, and you'll find that in your packet. I'll tell you what page here in a second if y'all are not already there. The agreement is rather long. And if you scroll past that to the, pardon me, to the resolution, it speaks to you all authorizing me to sign the agreement. That's why we're skipping over the agreement. It's all there. And
motion to approve,
it's on page 76 of your packet. We've got a motion from Squire Beaverson to approve.
Second,
Second.
Travis.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Mike Moody.
Mike Moody. Hang on just a second. Okay. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns? If not, please call the roll.
Squire Beaverson,
yes,
Judge Riley,
Yes.
Squire Travis,
Yes.
Squire Jerry Moody,
yes,
Squire Brewer.
I didn't hear you call my name, Lynn, but I'll say yes.
I did, I'm sorry. Squire Mike Moody,
Yes.
Motion passes, and we were going to move on to the road department truck purchase and equipment bid award, and I'm going to turn that over to Squire Jerry Moody.
Two bids. One was from the Ford dealership, Tim Sharp, and that was the cheapest, $29,858. And we also had one from Collins Ford, and we was just doing double checks to make sure everything is on the up and up, and they're not playing games. And Collins was $330 higher. So we recommend to go ahead with the Tim Sharp Auto Group on that purchase.
All right, which purchase is this?
I didn't understand what someone said.
Which purchase is this for what?
For the F-250 Ford truck for the road department.
All right, do we hear a motion?
Is it a F-250 Ford 2x2?
No,
4x4.
4x2 or 4x4?
4x4.
Page 78.
Yeah. Hey, look at it.
I will make a motion that we go with Tim Short Auto Group to purchase the 2021 F-250
We've got
for
a motion.
$20,900 or $29,858.
We've got a motion. Do we have
Second.
We've got a second, Squire Beaverson. That I will note is under the master contract as well. Not that it needed to be, it was under 30,000. So if there's no other questions or comments, please call the roll.
Chris Riley,
Yes.
Squire Travis,
Yes.
Squire Jerry Moody,
yes,
Squire Brewer,
Yes.
Squire Mike Moody,
Yes.
Squire Beaverson.
Yes.
Motion passes, and I'll turn it back over to Jerry.
okay. Also, bids for the equipment to go on. And that cheapest one was out of Cincinnati, Coffenbagger Truck Equipment Company. And they have done the equipment installation on other units for the road department. They was the cheapest by a few $1,000s.
Okay, and that's total, is it correct? Total is 33,058.
2,000. That is correct.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion to go
Okay.
ahead and purchase.
All right, we got a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
That's Squire Beaverson, it sounded like.
Yes.
If there's no questions or comments or concerns, please call the roll.
Squire Travis,
Yes.
Squire Jerry Moody,
Yes,
Squire Brewer,
Yes.
Squire Mike Moody,
Yes.
Squire Beaverson,
Yes.
Chris Riley.
Yes. And that is for the F-550, if I'm correct. Okay, next up would be the 2020 election update. Turn it over to Lynn Hesselbrock.
Just a brief recap on the election. It was a very unusual election cycle. Spencer County once again showed up to vote in the 2020 presidential election. 70.58% of our 16,298 registered voters voted in the 2020 general election, either early, by mail, or in person. or on election day itself. Spencer County was second only to Anderson County in voter turnout by just a couple ballots. Unlike the 2020 primary election, where almost 45% of the turnout was by mail, in the general election, only 17% chose to vote by mail-in balloting. Total of 74% of those who voted early, either by mail or in person. 26 chose to vote in person on election day itself. In-person early voting was a very popular option to voters, with 3,245 voting early in person at the Elk Creek Fire Station and 3,396 voting early in person at 80 East Main Street. Voters said that they liked being able to vote early in person, and they especially liked the opportunity to vote in the evening hours and on Saturday hours. Voters also liked being able to cast their vote at any voting location, no matter where they lived in the county. This option required that all 8 ballot faces that were used in the 2020 general election be available at each voting location. The options that made voting more convenient for the voters also made this a more expensive election for the county. Some of the costs were offset by CARES money that was distributed by Frankfurt. Early voting options and the ability of the voter to cast their ballot at any location, as well as expanded mail-in voting, will likely be the topic of proposed legislation this session. In fact, several bills have already been pre-filed that address these and other election issues. We are likely to see several changes to long-standing election statutes and regulations in the months to come. This election has proven to be not only more expensive due to the extra mail-in balloting costs of time, space, postage, and supplies, but also because of the added expense of extended voting hours and the need to staff those locations with the required number of precinct officers, in addition to the normal precinct officers on election day itself. Although this was the most difficult election to date as an election administrator, it was also an election that has had an enormous historical impact, both locally and nationally. While several states have struggled with getting the final election results, Kentucky was able to have 99.9% of our results available on election night. Due to multiple reporting dates, the Board of Elections was required to meet on multiple dates for late arriving mail-in ballots, as well as ballots that required a signature cure, both of these processes being new to this election cycle. So with all things considered, Spencer County's 2020 elections were without major incident and were held in accordance with all the new regulations and with the usual integrity that our county has come to expect and deserve. Luckily, we will have a year off from the election process, but we will need to prepare for the possibility of being required to allow voters expanded in-person voting opportunities, as well as the possibility of using vote centers rather than our usual precincts. This will necessitate a closer look at acquiring new voting equipment to allow for print-on-demand ballots at the voting locations rather than having pre-printed ballots for each of our normal precincts. We will have the luxury of time to fully research and develop a plan for the 2022 election cycle, which will have our local races involved, but it will be good to be able to step back and sigh a sigh of relief that this election cycle is behind us. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them if I can.
I've got a question. I know that this is not answerable right now. It's going to a lot depend on the legislature, which I presume there's going to be quite a bit of discussion about elections and the upcoming elections. Do you feel like, Lynn, that we're going to see some permanency to the having, fewer polling places?
It's a distinct possibility. We would be able to accomplish that with less equipment, because if we went with the Verity voting systems, a voter could come in and no matter where they lived in the county, it would be a print on demand ballot. The voter would input some information, it would print a ballot, the voter would make their selections, they would check it, they would print that ballot and then scan that ballot into a scanner. So in theory, one machine could handle a lot more voters than a regular e-scan machine. So we might be able to phase out our existing equipment and phase in some new equipment. Also, the federal government has given the state Board of Elections some discretionary money to spend on possibly providing more equipment to counties. I know right now we have at least one Verity system that has our name on it. But if we're going to go to Verity, we're going to have to go to Verity countywide because of the reporting systems involved in both of them. But I do think vote centers are a distinct possibility. People like the convenience of being able to vote no matter where they live. And, you know, I just think it's work as well as expanding voting hours. Both of those are distinct possibilities.
Well, I really, I think we all know that the equipment that you have needed to be replaced. And maybe the timing on this was good in that we didn't replace it with a lot of equipment that in a year or two we may not need. So I know you're going to be paying close attention to what happens in the legislature and the Clerks Association and so forth with regard to all that. And hopefully we can be prepared to purchase some voting equipment in our next fiscal year. So just keep us apprised of what's happening there. So does anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I would just like to thank Lynn personally for all the hard work her and her staff and the committee had done to make this a successful election.
It was a huge success. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else, we're going to move on to the next item is review and approval of expenditures, purchases, invoices, and transfers. I'll entertain a motion.
This is Jim. Did we talk about the discretionary funding for paving?
Yes, you approved the resolution, which also authorizes me to sign the contract.
Okay. All right. Good deal. All right. Okay.
All right. So review and approval of expenditures, purchases, invoices, and transfers. I'd say it's probably important that we do that, but we're going to need a motion.
I'll make the motion that we approve the transfers and pay the bills.
All right, Squire Brewer. I know there's a second right behind that. It's just a question of who.
This is Jerry. I'll second it.
I knew you'd be there, Jerry. Thank you. And are there any questions, comments, or concerns about any of those? Hopefully you've already asked before the meeting, but in case you haven't, we will find the answers and maybe have to get back to you. But if there are no comments, questions, or concerns, please call the roll.
For Jerry Moody,
Yes.
for Brewer,
Yes.
for Mike Moody,
Yes.
for Beaverson,
Yes.
for Riley,
Yes.
for Travis.
Yes.
Motion passes and we will make sure all that gets done. I have one other thing, Jerry, this actually is for you, a question, and maybe it should have been asked before the meeting. Have you talked to Todd about, I know we voted and approved surplusing the truck up at the road department. Has he talked to you about reversing that?
He has talked about it.
Okay, we're not ready to do that tonight though, right?
No, they're wanting to do something else. And
Okay.
I'm so far, it's just talk and really, he and I are not in agreement on it.
Okay.
They want to work on that motor and check things. And
It's going to require more discussion.
Yeah, I think emission systems on that truck, and it's kind of shady, and we might be violating the EPA regulations.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else to come before the court, how about a motion to adjourn? Well, that's okay. We could stay here. Nobody wants to move to adjourn?
Having a good time.
I tell you.
Jill makes a motion to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
And Scar Beaverson, it sounded like. We've got a motion and a second. Any comments, questions, or concerns? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We are now adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Phew.